Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And Doug St. Martin's officially going off on the main stage, making his 30-minute video calling out the CDL last night, and not just the CDL, but also throwing some daggers the way of Clayster, with Clayster having a very challenging time on the Challenger side last night. What does the future hold for both of these players, and also what the Challenger scene looks like for the rest of this year? Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Really up to the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Zero playing some streams last night. No idea what's going on in some of these search and destroy stuff. Like, I mean, yeah, search and destroy ranked play, it's not the greatest time in any Call of Duty, especially here in Vanguard. Now, firstly, before we talk about the Clayster stuff, I thought this is kind of interesting. Don't know if you guys have played with this. Like, look, I don't play Vanguard at all, so I don't really know what the settings look like in this game, but at sprint cancels, reload has been a setting in quite some time in Call of Duty. This is something that I've always done. Like, okay, let's say I'm reloading, but I need a gunfight. Like, you know, I can sprint to get out of the gunfight and then snap on the guy. That's the ideal. That's what I've always played with personally, since this has been an option, right? Because back in the day, like, you couldn't even sprint while reloading, right? You just, sprint would always cancel the reload effectively. But as Clay says, apparently this is now considered old man setting, which Doug disagrees in the replies. He says that he switched off this setting. So I don't know what you guys use or whether what you think is actually legitimate here, but I still play on, maybe I'm just an old man, I don't know. Maybe that's just how things are nowadays. But yeah, let's talk about Clayster in more detail here, because last night was at the first day of the Elite playoffs in North America. And well, here we go, because we've got Clayster and co. They were 6-1 in the kind of regular qualification games. They were looking rather good. They come in here to the playoffs as one of the favourites and get reverse swept in the first round by Venom and co. And a Clayster right here was a pretty tough time. Keep an eye on this scoreboard actually here, because Bracker, Fedor and Clayster all negative in this game. 5 Desert Siege Surge. They get reverse swept. Pretty tough scenes. Capsule at 9-5, right? So Capsule was probably looking at this thing and, yeah, no, what, this team, maybe I was carrying pretty hard. Of course, Clay has a lot of damage, given us only 4 kills. But yeah, Capsule might have finished this map and thought, okay, I'm going to second it, lads. Like, it might be time for me to dip out of this team. Clay goes on to say he got Kentucky fried that game, got a bounce back for the losers bracket match, but and then they lost to the losers bracket team as well. So pretty incredible scenes that Clay's guys got double first rounded. They went 6-1 in their qualifiers. They beat all the best teams pretty much. Then they got double rounded in the Elite playoffs. That's tough scenes. And this is kind of the final series as well. They lost to 705 Esports in this manner, 3-1 at the end. I'm pretty sure it was. So yeah, tough scenes for Clay and the guys. But it was really interesting actually the way things happened after this, because Capsule decided immediately after losing this tourney that he's out of there, right? Assault, Exceed and Dave Paddy, they decided to pick him up into their team. Clay, Bracken, Fellow now need another one. So immediately Challengers Rostermania going down as a result of this. Leaves Clayster's team in a pretty difficult spot, of course, because they've got the Boston Challengers event coming up very soon indeed. But even Doug St. Martin's going to give some interesting insight onto that in a second here. The fact that actually a lot of organizations are pulling out of that tournament just because they know there's nothing to play for there with regard to the World Championship, right? So all the support that's been having for Challengers in the last few weeks or so, especially because of the championship announcement that the CDL have done, is now, well, all of that support is effectively getting removed from the scene. Censor says it's pretty much the biggest joke he's ever been a part of in his 15 years of Call of Duty play, which is not exactly, well, a pretty indictment on the CDL. We'll see that here in more detail in a second. And before we talk about that, I thought this was actually rather interesting. The fact that a lot of pros were talking about the fact that this game just feels unbelievably inconsistent. As Clay says, Vanguard makes me feel weird about how to improve. Some days one thing works, the next day it's the worst play in the game. Such a reactive COD, you got to be on point, well, to bullet at all times. I think even RC said that he has different classes on different days, because some days he's getting fried and he has to change his classes up, and even his method says, am I the only one who is sprinting and snapping one day, and the next day I'm stuck in quicksand? This is the first time in my career where I feel delusional. And even as Clay says, he started to describe to the whole, like, you know, killy conspiracy, like, I feel like I was in molasses today. He says I couldn't even run around and do anything, right? So interesting that the pros say this, really. And even as Slasher says, of course, these are the guys that play the game day in, day out. And Slasher says, headshot multiplier, squad spawns, clutter maps will do that to you. Legitimate randomness. And he goes on to say here, there's some theory actually that different accounts, I'm pretty sure the Looty theory about this is that different accounts have different aim assist settings and stuff. Like, some accounts are actually good, other accounts are bad, and maybe it changes on a day-to-day basis. I don't really know, but it's kind of crazy the pros are talking about this, that one day they just feel like they're frying, another day they're not, and maybe it's a Vanguard product rather than themselves just being inconsistent, right? But who knows if this is a consistent trend. It's interesting, a lot of the AR saying this, right? You've got Clay, Slasher, Methods kind of charming into a similar manner, so we'll see if that happens going forwards, on whether the SMGs are feeling the same thing. But even as Crone says on the AR front, right, Scrappy is certainly a player that was in discussion to potentially be getting into the league. Of course, Toronto signed him to that kind of contract on the Challengers bench, and therefore, well, he's on their sub bench right now, and therefore he's a bit of a difficult target for other teams to buy out. I honestly think that since they brought Scrappy in as their sub, like as an official sub on the team, like their starting team has kind of kicked up into a new gear, because they know their spots are potentially in jeopardy. Like Cammy especially played a lot better since Scrappy has been signed as the official substitute, which I thought was rather interesting. But yeah, this game where he goes 33-12 game one, like just ridiculous numbers here from Scrappy again. This goes on fire right now. Certainly I would say this is the favourite team, the Ultra Academy NA, for the World Championship Championship on the Challenger side. But of course, speaking of Doug, he's not happy with the World Championship format at all, and understandably so. If you guys are unfamiliar with this situation, while Doug kind of says about the auto, it's the easiest AR he's ever used in his life, there's only going to be 8 teams as it presently stands going to the Challengers World Championship. 4 of those are determined through global pro points ladders, and the issue is that 3 of the teams on the top of the global pro points ladder outside of Ultra Academy North America are all European teams. All European teams that have pretty poor results internationally at LAN events, but yet they're still going to get to go to the World Championship easily enough because they have the online pro points. Of Rokkr Academy, for example, they've barely placed better than top 24 at any of the LAN events, but because they dominate people online, they have enough points to go to the World Championship. However, though, all the teams that tend to outplace them on LAN, a lot of the North American teams will barely get to go because only one of the teams will qualify through the kind of global ladder, and then another team will qualify through the qualifier, whereas you automatically get a Latin American team, a European team, and an APAC team qualify through their last chance qualifiers as well. So therefore, only 2 NA teams as it currently stands will go to the World Championship, despite the fact that there's probably, as Doug says, 6 or 7 easily that could compete, right? So the ideal world is you have like 32 teams that go to the World Championship, just like it used to be back in the day, and how it was last year online. Pretty sure last year, the team that won last year's Challengers World Championship would not have been going to this year's if the format stays as it currently is. So anyway, Doug comes out with a video explaining it, the fact that it's the biggest joke he's ever seen in Call of Duty, and also the key point I think he was making, and understandably so, was the fact that it's really killing a lot of players' careers, right? A lot of these organizations are pulling out, a lot of players really just can't do this anymore, they can't commit to it, they're losing money month on month. Fellow was saying that he's losing thousands every few months, every month really, to actually compete in this on his rent and all this type of stuff. He doesn't make enough money back from it to make it worthwhile unless he gets picked up, so he's just kind of holding out for that opportunity, and Doug's kind of touching on all these points in the video. So he does the video, he's also kind of submitted an alternate format to the league. We'll see if they review that and come up with any better ideas. They've got a few weeks to figure this stuff out, but yeah, he comes up with this video effectively saying Call of Duty is forcing me to retire. It's how a lot of players feel right now. Here's a couple of clips in the video, right? It's a 30-minute long banger from Doug, but here's about 2 minutes of it where he kind of breaks down the key issues.
And they were able to get a chance and opportunity because tournaments allowed them to. And now, for some reason, the Call of Duty League is really gatekeeping the competition. They're not capitalizing on who's the best players. And they're also giving opportunities to teams and players who, quite frankly, just don't deserve them. But in this qualifier, I'm actually going to have to play every single top team. I'm going to have to play against Assault, who's won a world championship and an MVP. Dave Patty, who was in the league this year. I'm going to have to play against Brack, who just won the last major. Clayster, who has 3 world championships. Now, he can't guard me. I already beat him on LAN. I'll do it again. I'll do it online. Don't matter. Fellow, pro player, right? Exotic, been around for a long time. Royalty was in the league this year. DiamondCom was in the league last year. Prestinni, world champion. Classic, multiple-time champion. Venom was in the league last year in 100 Thieves. As a guy who's been playing Call of Duty since 2007, and I've been a professional Call of Duty player since 2010, and being around the Call of Duty scene for 15 years now, I can honestly say it's never been worse, and we have no one to blame other than the people at the top of the league for making this format and these decisions. And ever since the franchise league has come in, a lot of these decisions at the top have been questionable, and this is by far taking the cake. There's nothing worse than this, to be honest with you. You're gatekeeping a bunch of talented teams and players from playing and having an opportunity to get a 6-figure contract because there's players in other regions who just simply don't belong that are going to be getting those spots over us. You're making us have these feelings towards these other players that we shouldn't even be having. I don't think that any of these players in Australia, Europe, Latin America should be catching any of these strays, but they are because of this format. And there's no one for us to blame other than the Call of Duty League, and hopefully they could fix it, man. There are dozens of players out there who will never be able to touch the league because of what this announcement was and how it trickled down and affected our ecosystem. Sponsors are pulling out. Orgs aren't funding teams anymore. Players are losing hope. They're losing passion. That's the last thing you need for your next up division. I mean, you have the G League in basketball. These guys are getting paid and contracted and salaried. You have AAA in baseball. You have XFL for football. Call of Duty Challengers is one of the biggest jokes I've ever had to be associated with in my life.
So will the CDL do anything about this? I'm not really sure. We have got Spinner Spence comes out a couple of days ago. We say, okay, we see what you guys are saying. Trust me, we do. He's kind of sent this kind of alternate format in. The Pentagram is kind of, describing how much worse this year is than last year, right? But that's the key thing, right? If you want to have a good development of talent from the second scene up to the pro scene, you've got to make it worthwhile for these guys, right? The scene down there in the Challenger side is so bad. And this is such an indicative example of it, right? We've seen the likes of Hex the last couple of years saying that, okay, I would have an academy team, I would have an Optic Academy that would bring a lot more eyeballs if the CDL can actually show me why that's a good idea, why I'm going to get any return on investment for that, show me that the Challenger scene is going to be supported by the league. But actually it's just gone backwards year on year effectively, to the point where so many of the top teams that need these opportunities, right? I think Doug made a great point. The likes of CleanX and Bance and other players like this. Insight was another good example from, let's say, back in the Black Ops 4 days, like it was CleanX and Insight on the Singularity team. And CleanX especially played one dominant series against, I think it was Envoy, with Eggs on the other side of things. And CleanX just destroyed people that series. And that one map, honestly, I think got him a Pro League spot next year when it came back to Modern Warfare. Like that single performance in that series at the World Championship with 32 teams, where he wouldn't have gone in this type of format. Of course, that was the pro side, this is the challenger side, but it's the same idea. Like that got him a spot in the Pro League, right? And there are many players who need a World Championship like this with many teams there to get noticed, right? To get noticed by the scene, to try and get picked up. By not allowing that, you're effectively restricting so many of the possibilities and gatekeeping, as Doug described it, many players that are easily good enough to be in the league for actually getting spotted to go into the league, right? So it just kills like the entire challengers ecosystem when players don't get a chance to even show out. It kills their drive. It makes them think, okay, well, I just can't make this sustainable at all. Like, you know, I've got to do a normal job, right? I've got to quit Call of Duty, do something else. A lot of the organizations know that they don't get any return from this anyways. They're pulling out because they know that, okay, they could send a team to the Boston event in a couple of weeks' time, but even then, they're not going to probably qualify for the World Championship. So what's the point funding this team? Like, it's just an absolute disaster, right? So Doug has said it's pretty much the worst thing he's ever seen. Like, it's crazy to think about the fact that this is the worst state that Doug has seen, kind of the amateur side of Call of Duty in, for the last, 10, 15 years. And this is when we have the franchise ecosystem where one pillar of the league is meant to be the challenger support, right? So, look, it's crazy scenes, but I thought Doug's had some good words and some good ideas in that. And also, you know, a couple of digs at Clayster saying you'll beat him again. I thought it was pretty funny as well. So, in tweeting your thoughts on this, look, we'll have to wait and see whether the CDL do anything about this. But even as Parasite says, he certainly agrees with kind of what Doug's saying, or kind of, echoes his thoughts on this matter that, can relate to the title, right, of Call of Duty kind of forcing him out. Truly ashamed to see the state of everything. I think Parasite feels a lot of these issues that Doug is raising were some of the reasons that kind of forced him away from the scene, forced him into retirement. He might not have retired if the league and the kind of amateur side was done in a better way. And I feel like a lot of players feel the same way. The kind of veterans are getting forced out. And even Doug was kind of wondering earlier this season, does he call it a day? He's sticking with it for now, but of course he's in the lucky position that he doesn't necessarily need to do this to make his living, right? Like he's already got enough money. He's making money from other sources. Whereas a lot of these players are like, this is the be all and end all, right? These guys need to make it to get their contracts, or if not, they're wasting a lot of their years in terms of like getting degrees and stuff. Like, it's an absolute nightmare of a situation. So hopefully the league listens to this. Hopefully they sort something out, because like I think Doug hit a lot of points on the head in that video, to be perfectly honest. And even as he says right here, like 3 of the auto qualified teams, they're already going to go to the World Championship guaranteed. They disagree with the format as it currently is. It favors them, but they still say, like, this is a bad idea. We want more teams to be here. The only one apparently that didn't agree with Beans. And then he says, actually, no, I do agree. Like, yeah, unanimous decision again. So crazy scenes. Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Just to finish out with this one here for Los Angeles, he's picked 3 to create Dream Call of Duty. Like, this is actually an interesting question here, to be honest. Okay, 3, we've got to have maps. Maps are 100% the most important thing in a Call of Duty game. Maps have got to stay. I would honestly, I think pick 10 is just so important. Like, who's picking Gunsmith? Let's be honest here. Pick 10 is also important to the way a game plays, in my opinion, at least in terms of the way the classes work. I would probably pick 10. I'd pick 3 lane maps for sure, then pick 10, and then probably Piccadilly, right? I think Piccadilly is the clear third option. Best map in Call of Duty history. You've got to get that in there as your kind of dream Call of Duty. But yeah, in reality, honestly, like, yeah, a couple of years ago, I'd have said boots on the ground. But nowadays, honestly, the idea of like a 3-lane map game with pick 10 and jetpacks back, I don't know. That would be, I mean, it's basically Black Ops 3, right? Which is probably the most fun I've ever had playing Call of Duty. So I don't know. I'd choose 3-lane, pick 10, and I don't really care about the other 2, to be honest. Like boots or jetpacks, I don't really mind if there's 3-lane and pick 10. That's just my take on the matter right now. But, intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button and tell us your YouTube gods. That's a good video. I'd also like you should see it as well. And I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you guys as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.